What is going on, guys? It's your friendly neighborhood Shenanigans here, and today we've got a huge build video for you. So I've showed off my rig in previous videos, but I was always disappointed that I never actually got to show you guys the build, because the build was fun. I love building computers. Building computers is more than just a hobby for me. In fact, I want to make it a career. So why not a better way to kick off this YouTube channel into really showing what we're all about by bringing you the beast that brings you all the videos that you watch here on this channel. This is Project Alice. Now, I'm going to be going through a lot of the parts that I used, why I chose them, and why they're best suited for my needs. Okay, to kick things off, we'll start with the processor. And here I have an Intel Core i7-4770K quad-core processor. Intel makes great processors with advanced hyper-threading. Not only that, if you've ever listened to the guys over at Tech Syndicate, you will all know that AMD is the poor man's processor. Now, to support this processor and bring all these parts together, I have the ASUS Maximus 7 Hero full ATX motherboard. It's an LGA 1150 chip socket, 3 PCI Express slots. This board offers USB 3.0. It also offers the onboard SupremeFX sound card, which was pioneered by ASUS. I chose this board because it has enough PCI Express slots to support my needs for the future. Also, it has 4 DDR3 RAM slots. And of course, aesthetics had nothing to do with why I chose this motherboard. And next, I'm using 16 gigs of HyperX Fury RAM at 1866. It's moderately fast RAM, and it's enough for me to edit and render videos. Next, we have the ASUS DirectX CU2 Overclocking Edition GTX 780. Now, mind you, all these parts here were purchased at around the time that this graphics card was released. So, if any of these parts seem a little out of date, that's probably why. This card has 3 gigabytes of GDDR5, around 2300 CUDA cores, with a 900 MHz core clock speed and a boost clock speed of around 950 MHz. I can easily max out games at 1080p with this graphics card, and overall this card stays pretty cool with the exclusive Cooltech fans. Now for my power supply, I chose the EVGA 750 G2 80 Plus Gold 750 watt power supply. It's a fully modular power supply and it supports enough wattage to power all of my parts. Now for my cooling, I've chose the Corsair H100i all-in-one liquid cooler. Me personally, I've always preferred liquid cooling to air cooling, and the reason why I chose the all-in-one was because it's faster and easier than installing a custom loop, and it's less dangerous. Now as for my other peripherals, I've chosen a Samsung 850 EVO 250 gig solid state drive, 2 WD Reds, each 1 terabyte, an ASUS Blu-ray combo drive, the ASUS Republic of Gamers front base. I chose this because it's a decent fan controller and you can automatically overclock with it. And once again, aesthetics had nothing to do. I've also chosen 3 Corsair AF140s. And finally, the Cooler Master CM Storm Scout 2 to house all of these parts. Now, without further ado, let's get this build started. Now let's start off with our case. Now before you can actually start assembling your PC, you need to pre-plan in order to figure out how you're going to tackle this build. You need to know a lot of small finicky details such as the length of your power supply, the size of your graphics card, will it fit in your case, fans, radiators, all these finicky details that you'll need to know in order to correctly build your PC. So first we're going to start off by taking off the side panel. To do that, you're going to look to the back of your case and you're going to want to unscrew these thumb screws. There should be one on the top and one on the bottom of your side panel. Once you've removed the thumb screws, you're going to slide your side panel back and it should just come right off. Now before you do anything else, please be sure to take care of your side panels. Put them in a safe place where you know they're not going to get dented or scratched. My recommendation is putting them back in the box that your case came in. Now back to what I was saying before about pre-planning. Something that I will admit to is that I did not pre-plan when I built my PC. My graphics card is too long in order to fit with this drive cage here. Also, my radiator and fans for my liquid cooler will not fit inside the case with the full ATX motherboard. Please understand that I was able to get everything to work, but that's because after I built it the first time, I kind of started to figure out, oh, okay, this is my case, these are my parts, this is how everything fits together. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to remove this drive cage. Also forgot to mention before that the only tool that you'll really need to build your computer is a Phillips head screwdriver. Alright, so let's get started. We're going to unscrew all of the screws that are holding this drive cage together. Be sure not to lose these screws in case you want to put your drive cage back in there and remove your graphics card for some reason. Once you've removed all the screws, your drive cage should literally just slide right out. Once again, put this somewhere safe and somewhere where you'll remember it. On to the next task. How am I going to fit my radiator and my fans in this case? I'm not. We're actually going to be mounting the radiator outside the case. So what we're going to do here is remove the top panel from this case. Now we're at the top of the case. To remove this top panel, there are 6 fins underneath here. 2 should be here, 2 should be here, and 2 should be on the back here. You're just gonna reach under and squeeze these fins together in order to make them pop up through the case. Be sure to put that somewhere safe. Now this next step may seem a little weird to some pros, but we're actually going to mount the radiator and fans at the top now. So what you're gonna do is take your water block through here and just feed it through. And then push the radiator back until it all sits comfortably like so. All right, so what we're gonna do is set this up in a pull configuration. So you're gonna make sure that your Corsair logo on your fan is faced down. So that way it's pulling air through the bottom of the fan and pushing it out, up through the radiator and out of your case. So on one of the drive cages of your case, there's going to be a small box of little accessories and doodads and all this other fun stuff. That's basically going to be consisting of screws, standoffs, drive rails. But for now, you're going to want to look for these long screws that look like so. Right, and there should be just a little bit of give with the screws at the top there. That's enough to go through your case and connect to your radiator and hold your radiator in place. And then from there, you're going to use your screwdriver and just tighten that down. And then just repeat this process. Be sure not to over tighten your screws in case you have anti-vibration mounts in your fans. So your final product should look a little something like this. So what you're gonna do with these cables now is you are going to route them up through here behind where the motherboard would be, like so. So now that the radiator is mounted and the drive cage is removed, we're ready to continue to the next step. What you're going to want to do now is take your case and put it somewhere safe, because now we're going to start working on very fragile parts, such as the motherboard and the processor. So please be sure to take very gentle care with them. Alright, so now we've got a wide open space to work with, and now we can start working on our motherboard. There we go, there's all of our parts. So the first thing we're going to do is install the processor. Now be very, very careful. The processor is a very delicate piece of equipment. Be sure to not touch the pins and needles located in the chip socket on the motherboard, and be sure not to touch the bottom of your processor. Alright, so the first step to install the processor is you're going to see this little retention arm. You're going to push it down with just a little bit of force and pull it out to the right, and then the retention arm should just lift without ease at that point. And from there, you're going to gently grab this little arm and lift the hatch back. Now, once again, I must caution you to not touch the pins and needles that are in the chip socket. You will break them if you touch them. They're very delicate, and trust me, you don't want to be out of a nice motherboard or a processor. Now, while handling the processor with great care, you're going to want to line up the golden little triangle with the dot located on your motherboard near your chip socket, and you're just going to gently place your processor in there. Give it the gentlest little wiggle, bring down your hatch, push the retention arm down, and lock the retention arm in place, and voila, your processor is now installed. Now this next part is much easier. What we're going to be doing next is installing our RAM. You're going to look on your RAM DIMMs for these tiny little notches, and you're going to line these notches up with the inverted notches located in the DIMM slots on your motherboard. You're just going to want to evenly slide your RAM down all the way until you hear a nice, satisfying click, like so. And then you're going to repeat the process, going black to black. That's only if you're using 2 sticks of memory, and if you're using 4, you're just going to fill all of them. And your RAM is now installed. Now this next part of the build is optional, however I would recommend doing so just to make sure that everything posts and all of your parts work. You don't want to go ahead and build your entire computer and then find out that something went wrong in shipping. Alright, and there you have it, our build posted. It tells us our processor and our total memory. Also, if I forgot to mention before, you can indeed use your motherboard box as a static-free workstation in case you haven't been building long enough to actually own your own workstation. Alright, so for this step, you're going to want to lay your case down on its side to wherever your workstation is. Basically what we're going to end up doing now is installing our standoffs. Now our standoffs are going to basically prevent the motherboard from touching this, the back of our case. We don't want that to happen. So that's why we install the standoffs. Now in the little box of accessories that came with your case, there should also be one of these little tools here. These little tools are going to be what you're going to be using to install your standoffs. They fit in like so, perfectly, so that way you can actually screw in your standoffs. Now most cases like to label where you're going to install your standoffs based on the size of motherboard you have. So for a full ATX motherboard, we're going to want to install our standoffs here, 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 and here, here, and here. So, without further ado, let's get started installing our standoffs then. Alright, and that's how you install your standoffs. So now that the standoffs are installed, we can go ahead and install the IO shield. The IO shield is simple enough. You're just gonna make sure it lines up with all the corresponding inputs on the motherboard, on the rear of the motherboard, and then you're just going to put it in the space that fits on the back of the case and press. Apply a little bit of pressure until you hear the snap, and there you go. The IO shield is installed. Now we can go ahead and install the motherboard. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to gently take your motherboard and just kind of slide it in. Now you're going to want to install this by taking your motherboard screws and pushing the motherboard towards the rear of the case until you can see that the screw holes in your motherboard located here, 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 and here are all lined up with the standoffs. Then you're going to take your motherboard screws, you're going to want to locate the middle standoff and screw that one in place. Now you don't want to over tighten it, you just want to make sure that the motherboard does not move. And you're going to repeat this process for each one of the standoffs. Now before I go ahead and install the rest of the screws, notice why I installed the radiator and fans first, because I wouldn't have been able to access these screw points with a screwdriver while the motherboard was here. We pre-planned and solved the problem that could have been a serious issue had we went and installed the motherboard first. And now your motherboard's installed. Okay, now thanks to some more pre-planning, we're actually going to go ahead and install our optical drive and our ASUS front base. Why are we going to do this now? Because it's a pain in the ass to get to once your liquid cooler is installed. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our front base and our ASUS Blu-ray combo drive. Alright, so the way I've decided to orient these is the combo drive on the top and then the front base just beneath it. So it's going to kind of look like that on the front. It's going to look pretty cool. Alright, so once again, pre-planning is about to come into effect again. So since the way that these are actually going to be sitting in the PC, like this is going to be closest to the power supply. So since this isn't the longest SATA power connector in the world, we're actually going to want to make our first power connector the one that connects to our combo drive, and then the second, and then the last power connector, the one that connects to the front base. So we're just going to orient them correctly and plug that in. Orient this one correctly and plug that in. So now, as you can see, if they were sitting like that, like they would be in the actual case itself. Let me just move my hand here. It would be basically just a perfect conjoinment for the SATA power connectors. So, conjoinment, is that a word? No, I don't think it is. So what we are going to do is we are going to take this jubilee of mess of cables and we're just gonna shove them all right on in here. Make sure you're there to grab them on the other side, and then from there you are going to tilt them both on their side. You're gonna wanna make sure each bay is unlocked, and then as soon as you have them all flush in there, you're going to want to lock your ASUS drive. Make sure you get a nice click there, and then you're gonna wanna lock both of those. Make sure you get a lovely click on the first one. The top one's not really gonna lock as well because of the shape of the front base, but other than that, yeah, that step is done. All right, now you're just gonna take a look and see that everything back there is all nice and neat. There's no big huge mess back there. It's nice, it's neat, and it's manageable, which is exactly what we want. All right, so now for this next step, we are actually going to be mounting the Corsair H100i mount. Now, the back plate looks like this. You're gonna look for that and all of your equipment that came with your Corsair H100i. And you're gonna notice that there's these 4 holes here on your motherboard. You're gonna wanna go behind your case into that big open space where your motherboard is. All right, so now that your back plate is on and you can't see any air through those holes that were there. All right, so now what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna hold on to your back plate, and what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna take these dark gray standoffs and screw them into the holes that are provided on your back plate. Okay, so now that all of your standoffs are installed, now you're gonna wanna install some thermal compound. This is thermal compound. I actually prefer using Arctic Silver. Hopefully you purchased some when you decided to purchase all your computer parts. And you're gonna take this thermal compound and you're gonna want just a little bit. I like to make a little X mark in my thing. I'm at a weird angle, so that was like the shittiest X I could have ever made. But it is what it is. All right, so this light thing, this light pen is gonna be in my mouth, so sorry if you can't hear me really. Okay, so what you're gonna do now, is you're gonna place your water block up against your CPU. And you're gonna wanna orient your water block and make sure that it follows through to each one of the standoffs, and you're gonna wanna hold it there. Now you're gonna take the compression fittings that came with your Corsair H100i. You're gonna wanna screw them on. Now these you are definitely gonna wanna screw on in a zigzag fashion, so that way the water block can evenly place against the processor. Make sure they're nice and tight. You don't want them too tight. You don't want to fucking kill the shit, but you want them nice and tight. You don't want to put her in the hospital. No? Alright. Alright, and your liquid cooler is now installed. So now we're going to install our power supply. So to install a power supply, it's really quite simple. You're just going to take 4 small screws, and then you're going to line up the 4 screw holes along with the rear of your case. So once your screw holes are lined up, now you're just going to screw your power supply in. And voila, your power supply is installed. We are going to now install our rear exhaust fan. So basically, we are going to be installing it as an exhaust, so it's going to be oriented like this, so that way it's pulling air through this way and out this way. So to install your rear exhaust fan, you're going to take the 4 screws that came with your fan, and one at a time, you are just going to screw them in. It's actually quite simple. And now your rear exhaust fan is installed. Mounting hard drives is really easy. All you need to do is look for the SATA connectors in the rear and then make sure that those are facing the rear of the case. Now once you do that, you're going to locate the holes on the side and you're going to find your drive rails that came with the little box of accessories that came with your case. And you're going to put 2 drive rails on the side, and you're going to have the wider ends of the drive rails, the tabbed ends of the drive rails, furthest away from the side that has all the SATA connectors. Once you place them in the corresponding holes and make sure it's the right way, you're going to slide the rails right into the drive cage until you hear a satisfying click. Like so. Just repeat this process for however many hard drives you have. Now as for solid state drives, all you're going to need to do is just mount it. It's a very similar way. It's got the drive rails. Screw your solid state drive onto this little plastic plate, and then you put your drive rails inside. Remember, make sure all of the SATA connectors are on the rear and on the opposite side of the draw tabs. Then you're just going to take your solid state drive, place it into your drive cages, slide the drive rails all the way down until you hear that satisfying click. Voila, you're ready to connect your hard drives and your solid state drive to your motherboard and power supply. Then to install a graphics card, you're going to want to make sure that the PCIe lanes are open. So we are going to unscrew this lane and this lane. So now we have 2 lanes open. So you're going to want to make sure that this is flicked open in order to do this. So you're just going to gently plug it in until you hear the satisfying click and you see that the lever that you pushed forward before to open it is now closed. Once you do that, while holding up the graphics card, you're going to want to replace the thumb screws . Now for the final part of this build is just to plug in the GPU and plug in the computer and seeing if it toasts. Alright, so there you have it. The build is finished. Now to close her back up, plug her in, see how she does. Alright guys, it's the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time to turn her on and see what happens. That beep is good. Hey! Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this build video. I hope you learned a lot from it. For all of you new builders out there, please be very careful when building a PC. It's always best to make sure you don't fuck up. And I'm not trying to say that to be mean, I'm saying that because I care about you guys. I really do care about you guys. I don't want your PCs getting fried because you did something wrong. Technically speaking, if this were a new liquid cooler, I would do a 24-hour liquid cooling test just to make sure everything is okay, make sure it doesn't leak or anything. But I've used this liquid cooler before, so like this exact same one. This is my liquid cooler that I've had since last August. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please be sure to like the video and subscribe. Also, this video is brought to you by Freedom. Without them, this video would not be possible. Thank you guys so much for helping me out. And thank you guys. Leave comments below if you want to see more videos like this one, if you want to see any other gameplay videos, if you want to see any informational videos. I can do all kinds of stuff for you guys. Anyway guys, that's all the time that I have. I'll show some more B-roll and glam footage with music at the end of this. Hope you enjoy.